3 weeks ago, Highway Patrol called me about my 7-year-old son. For a second, I thought he'd been kidnapped. I was wrong. My ex-husband had left him alone at a highway rest stop to teach him a lesson. For nearly 2 hours, my son sat beside a broken vending machine in the cold, holding the orange emergency wristband I made him wear. And when I finally got there, he looked up at me and asked, "Did I do it right?" My name is Rachel Morgan. I'm 35 years old. I live in Lexington, Kentucky. And what broke me most that day was realizing my son had followed the emergency plan I made for strangers because of his own father. If you're watching this right now, comment where you're watching from, and subscribe if stories like this hit differently for you. I read every comment. 3 weeks ago, I was driving to a custody exchange meeting when my phone rang from an unknown number. I almost ignored it. Then I answered. The voice said, "Ma'am, this is Kentucky Highway Patrol. Are you Rachel Morgan?" My hands tightened around the steering wheel immediately. I asked if my son was hurt. The officer said, "Your son is safe." Safe. That word should have calmed me. It didn't, because safe usually means something happened first. Then he told me my 7-year-old son had been found alone at a highway rest stop off I-75 southbound, exit 143. Alone. I asked where his father was. There was a short silence. Then the officer said, "That's something we need to discuss in person." My ex-husband Daniel Morgan remarried 8 months after our divorce. Her name was Tara. She was organized, polished, and deeply uncomfortable around children unless they were behaving perfectly. My son Noah noticed that before I did. He'd come home saying things like, "Tara doesn't like sticky hands," or "Tara says I ask too many questions." Small comments, the kind adults ignore because they don't sound dramatic enough. Daniel always dismissed it. He'd say, "She's helping him learn structure." But structure and coldness are not the same thing, and children can feel the difference long before adults admit it. After the divorce, I made Noah wear a bright orange emergency wristband whenever he traveled. It had my full name, my phone number, medical info, and one simple rule attached to it. I told him, "If you ever get separated, stay where adults can clearly see you. Don't wander. Show this to a safe grown-up." We practiced it like a game, at malls, parking lots, airports. He took it seriously. He used to ask, "Even if I get scared?" And I'd tell him, "Especially then." I created that habit because the world can be unpredictable. I never imagined family would be the reason he needed it. According to the police report, everything started with orange juice. Daniel, Tara, and Noah had stopped at the rest area during the drive back. Noah was holding a large fast food cup in the back seat. He dropped it. Orange juice spilled across the seat and onto Tara's handbag. That should have been an annoying parenting moment. Nothing more. But Tara reportedly became furious. Not irritated. Furious. A gas station employee later told officers she heard Tara say, "He ruins everything he touches." My son is 7 years old. 7. Daniel later admitted Noah was crying after being yelled at. Tara told him the child needed consequences. She reportedly said, "If you keep rescuing him, he'll never learn." Daniel's version was that they only meant to scare him for a few minutes. That was his explanation. A few minutes. Because apparently abandoning a 7-year-old beside a highway sounded educational to them. The officer told me security footage showed Noah standing beside the entrance after Daniel walked him out. Then Daniel and Tara got back in the SUV and drove away. If this story is hitting you emotionally, comment where you're watching from right now, and don't forget to subscribe. I'm reading every single comment. Noah did exactly what I taught him. That detail destroyed me. He didn't run into the parking lot, didn't chase the SUV, didn't panic and wander. He stayed near a broken vending machine where adults could see him. The machine had a low electrical hum according to the report. A truck driver remembered him sitting cross-legged beside it, still wearing his backpack, still holding that orange wristband with his fingers. When a cashier asked if he was okay, Noah said, "My dad's coming back." Because children believe promises much longer than adults deserve. 10 minutes passed, then 30, then over an hour. A cashier checked on him twice. A truck driver offered chips. Noah refused because I taught him not to leave his safe spot without a trusted adult. He stayed exactly where I told him to stay. The employee later told police Noah kept asking what time it was, not crying loudly, not causing a scene, just waiting. That image has lived in my head ever since, a 7-year-old trying to follow instructions while adults failed him. The gas station manager finally called Highway Patrol after reviewing security footage. Trooper Michael Reeves arrived first, badge number included in the report. He approached Noah carefully, asked his name, asked if he knew where his parents were. Noah reportedly answered, "I'm supposed to stay here." That answer stopped the trooper immediately. Then he noticed the orange wristband. That's what changed everything. He read my number directly from Noah's wrist. Called once. I missed it while driving. He called again. That was the call I answered. Police contacted Daniel before I arrived. His explanation changed more than once. First, it was a misunderstanding. Then, we were circling back. Then, he was never in danger. Security timestamps disagreed. The footage showed nearly 2 hours passing. Nearly 2 hours, not 5 minutes, not a quick lesson, not a misunderstanding. Timestamps don't protect feelings. They protect facts. When I arrived, Noah was sitting exactly where they found him. Same backpack, same wet sneakers, same orange wristband. Trooper Reeves was crouched beside him, speaking softly. My son looked up the second he saw me, then asked, "Did I do it right?" That question shattered something inside me. Because he wasn't asking why his father left. He wasn't asking if he was in trouble. He wanted to know if he followed the rule correctly. And that was the moment I understood this story was far from over. About 20 minutes after I got there, Daniel's SUV pulled into the rest stop parking lot. Tara was in the passenger seat. Daniel stepped out already talking. The kind of fast-talking people do when they're trying to control the story before facts settle. He kept saying, "Rachel, this isn't what it looks like." That sentence means nothing when your child has already been sitting alone for nearly 2 hours. Noah moved closer to me the second Daniel approached. That detail didn't go unnoticed. Trooper Reeves saw it immediately. So did I. Tara got out of the SUV looking irritated, not shaken. That part still stays with me. Not relieved, not emotional, annoyed. Her first sentence was, "He needs to learn actions have consequences." My son was 7. 7. She started describing the spilled orange juice like it was some criminal incident. The handbag, the upholstery, the mess. Trooper Reeves stopped her mid-sentence and asked, "You're referring to the child sitting alone for 2 hours?" Her expression changed after that. Because saying something out loud in front of law enforcement sounds very different than saying it inside a moving car. Noah barely spoke while this happened. He stayed close enough that his sleeve touched mine, still holding the edge of that orange wristband. Trooper Reeves asked if he wanted water. Noah nodded, then quietly asked me, "Am I still going home with you?" That question cut deeper than anything Daniel said. Because children ask simple questions that expose bigger damage. He wasn't asking if his dad was mad. He wasn't asking what happened next. He needed reassurance that someone was actually taking him home. The rest stop manager brought up the security footage in front of everyone. That changed the entire conversation. Exact timestamps. Daniel walking Noah toward the entrance. Daniel returning to the SUV. The SUV leaving. Noah sitting alone. Time passing. Staff checking on him. Highway patrol arrival. The whole timeline was visible. Daniel stopped talking for a second after seeing it. Because explanation becomes harder when video exists. Facts have a very unemotional way of ending creative storytelling. Daniel shifted versions again. Now he said they were trying to make Noah think about his behavior. Then he claimed traffic delayed their return. Then he said Noah misunderstood. Trooper Reeves asked one simple question. "Did you intentionally leave your child here?" Daniel didn't answer immediately. That silence answered enough. Tara jumped in trying to fill it. But by then, the damage was already done. Because hesitation around a question that simple tells its own story. If this story is hitting you emotionally, comment where you're watching from right now. And don't forget to subscribe. I'm reading every single comment. Trooper Reeves crouched down to Noah's level. Gentle voice. No pressure. Then asked, "Who told you to stay right here?" Noah answered immediately. "My mom." Then the trooper asked, "Who taught you to show the wristband?" Noah said, "My mom." Daniel looked away. That moment mattered. Because preparation is invisible until the day it saves someone, and my son sitting safely there wasn't luck. It was training. Tara kept trying to defend the decision. She called it discipline, structure, boundaries. Every polished adult word people use to make cruelty sound intentional. Then she said, "He wasn't actually abandoned. People could see him." Trooper Reeves looked directly at her and said, "That doesn't improve what happened." Silence followed. Because some sentences don't need volume, just clarity. Daniel forgot one very important thing: custody paperwork. That weekend exchange had exact pickup and drop-off documentation, exact timing, exact responsibility. He was the custodial parent during that window. Meaning this wasn't a vague family disagreement. This was documented legal responsibility. Trooper Reeves reviewed the paperwork. His tone became noticeably more formal after that. Daniel noticed too. While adults argued, Noah leaned against me and whispered, "Dad said 5 minutes." That was it. 5 words. No dramatic story, no exaggeration. Children tell truth differently. Simple, direct, unpolished. Daniel had told him 5 minutes, then left for nearly 2 hours. That sentence settled heavier than every excuse combined. Another officer arrived, then a supervisor. The conversation shifted from emotional explanation to formal procedure, statements, names, documentation. Daniel finally looked nervous, real nervous, because up until then he still believed this was a parenting disagreement he could smooth over. It wasn't. And standing there holding Noah while officers took notes. I realized this situation was becoming much bigger than a bad decision. The rest stop security manager walked over holding printed footage stills, time-stamped images, clear enough that nobody could argue details anymore. Daniel standing with Noah near the entrance. Daniel walking away, the SUV exiting. Noah still sitting there much later. A truck parked. A cashier checking on him. Highway patrol arriving. Daniel stopped trying to sound confident after that. Because the story he kept rebuilding kept getting erased by evidence. Paper can be argued with. Video is harder. Tara changed direction completely. Now she claimed Daniel only meant to circle around. That traffic caused delays. That things got out of hand. Trooper Reeves asked, "Then why didn't either of you call the child?" Silence. Then, "Why didn't either of you contact his mother?" More silence. Because once basic questions start, emotional justifications collapse quickly. Adults often think complexity protects them. But the simplest questions usually do the most damage. One officer asked Noah gentle questions away from the louder conversation. Nothing aggressive, just basic details. What happened? What Dad said? Where he sat? Noah answered clearly. He said Tara was angry about the orange juice. He said Dad told him to wait. He said the car left. He said he thought they were coming back. Then he said, "I counted trucks for a while." That sentence destroyed me. Because children create small games when adults fail them. One supervisor asked Daniel for his call log. That changed everything. Because if they truly meant to come back quickly, there should have been frantic calls, attempts to contact staff, attempts to call me. Something. Instead, the timeline looked terrible. No urgent calls, no attempt to report a missing child, no panic. Just normal phone activity. That detail changed the entire tone of the investigation, because accidental separation looks different than intentional departure. The cashier who first noticed Noah gave her statement. She said she asked if he needed help. Noah politely told her, "My dad said wait here." She checked again later. Same answer. Then later, again. Still alone. She said what frightened her most was how hard he was trying to be brave. That line hit me harder than expected. Because bravery in children often looks a lot like quiet fear. If this story is hitting you emotionally, comment where you're watching from right now. And don't forget to subscribe. I'm reading every single comment. Daniel's calm image cracked once officers pressed harder. He snapped, said everyone was overreacting, said this was parenting, said children need consequences. Trooper Reeves cut that off immediately. Discipline does not involve leaving a 7-year-old at a highway rest area. That sentence landed hard. Because authorities saying what common sense already knows makes excuses sound smaller. Tara interrupted trying to help Daniel. Instead, she made things worse. She said, "He knew exactly where we left him." An officer immediately asked, "So you acknowledge intentionally leaving him?" She froze. That one sentence changed everything. Because sometimes people defend themselves straight into clarity. Daniel looked furious at her after that. The kind of look people exchange when damage becomes irreversible. While all of this happened, Noah asked me something tiny. He looked up and said, "Did my backpack stay with me the whole time?" I asked why. He said, "My dinosaur was inside." That completely broke me. Because while adults argued legal responsibility, my son had spent those hours worried about a stuffed dinosaur in his school bag. Children stay heartbreakingly small even inside very adult disasters. An officer stepped aside and made another call, then came back with paperwork. That's when I understood this wasn't ending with a warning. Child protective reporting procedures had started. Daniel went pale. Not embarrassed. Actually pale. Because for the first time, he realized this decision would exist beyond one bad evening. Documentation changes everything. By the end of that night, Daniel had told so many versions of events even he sounded unsure. Traffic, miscommunication, discipline, temporary separation, misunderstanding. None of it matched footage. None matched Noah. None matched phone records. Standing there beside my son, I realized the most dangerous people aren't always the loudest. Sometimes they're the ones convinced they can explain anything after the fact. After the statements were taken, Daniel walked toward Noah like the discussion was over. Like this had been an awkward parenting misunderstanding. He reached for Noah's shoulder and said, "Come on, buddy, let's go." Noah moved behind me instantly, not dramatically, just automatic. That movement changed the entire energy around us. Because children don't calculate optics, they move toward where they feel safest. And every officer standing there noticed exactly what my son chose. Tara looked frustrated that things weren't wrapping up. She said they had already lost enough time. Enough time. That phrase actually came out of her mouth. One officer looked at her for a second before writing something down. Daniel told Noah, "You're making this bigger than it needs to be." That sentence made my stomach turn. Because children don't create consequences. Adults do. And now my son was being blamed for the fallout of decisions he never made. One officer gently asked Noah if he wanted to leave with his father that night. Noah pressed himself against my side and quietly said, "No." Just one word. Clear. Calm. Certain. Daniel immediately said, "He's emotional." But that wasn't confusion. That was choice. And hearing my 7-year-old answer that question without hesitation broke something in me I still haven't fully repaired. The custody schedule didn't matter anymore. Not that night. The officers made that very clear. The supervising officer explained that given the circumstances, Noah would be leaving with me pending follow-up review. Daniel argued immediately. He called it unfair, temporary overreach, an emotional reaction. But documented child abandonment at a highway rest stop changes the legal conversation fast. That was the first moment Daniel understood he was losing control of the situation. Tara turned toward me and said this happened because I made Noah too dependent. That if I hadn't raised him to be dramatic, none of this would have escalated. That accusation would have been laughable if it weren't attached to my terrified child. One officer asked her directly, "Are you blaming the 7-year-old?" She stopped talking after that. Because some questions expose exactly how unreasonable someone sounds without needing further argument. If this story is hitting you emotionally, comment where you're watching from right now. And don't forget to subscribe, I'm reading every single comment. Trooper Reeves asked to speak with me privately. He wanted custody documentation, emergency contacts, medical details. Then he said something I'll never forget. "Your son did exactly what protected children are taught to do." That sentence hit hard, because all I could think was, he shouldn't have needed the lesson at all. Prepared parenting saved him, but no parent wants proof like that. Daniel shifted into apology mode. A softer voice, different posture. Now he said things got out of hand, that nobody intended harm, that this was being misunderstood. But intent becomes less persuasive when outcomes are documented. Nearly 2 hours. A child alone. No emergency calls. Security footage. Witnesses. The facts were already standing there. And facts don't become smaller because someone chooses a calmer tone. In the middle of everything, Noah tugged my sleeve and asked, "Are we sleeping at your house?" That question nearly leveled me, because stability for children is incredibly simple. A safe bed, a familiar blanket, a parent who stays, while adults debated accountability. My son only wanted to know where he'd sleep. That perspective tells you exactly who the real victim is. The officers made it official. Noah would leave with me. Daniel was informed that further contact arrangements would happen through proper channels. He looked stunned. Like consequences had only existed theoretically until that exact moment. Tara started arguing again. The supervising officer shut that down quickly. Procedure had already started. And once official reporting begins, emotional bargaining doesn't carry much weight. The drive home was almost completely quiet. Noah fell asleep halfway there holding that orange wristband in one hand and his stuffed dinosaur in the other. Streetlights moved across his face through the window. I kept one hand on the steering wheel and one on his shoe, just to feel he was there. That night changed something permanent, because some moments divide life into before and after, and this was one of them. The next morning, Noah woke up in his own bed wearing the same pajamas from the night before. His stuffed dinosaur was under one arm. That orange emergency wristband was still on his wrist. I made pancakes because I didn't know what else to do. Routine feels important after trauma. He sat at the kitchen table swinging his legs like any normal morning, then looked at me and asked, "Am I still going to Dad's next weekend?" Children ask the questions adults are least prepared to answer. I asked if he wanted to talk about what happened. Noah nodded, then asked, "Was Dad actually coming back?" That question stayed with me longer than anything else, because he still wanted the answer to make sense. Children naturally look for explanations that hurt less. I told him, "You did nothing wrong." That mattered more than explaining adult failure in that moment, because shame attaches quickly when children think punishment caused abandonment. By Monday morning, official follow-up had started. Statements, caseworker calls, custody documentation reviews, security footage requests, witness confirmation. Everything became formal. Daniel tried contacting me repeatedly. Voicemails, texts, emails. Mostly some version of, "We need to handle this privately." But private handling ended the moment our son sat alone at a highway rest stop under security cameras. Daniel eventually sent a long apology email. He said he made a terrible parenting decision, that he never meant for things to go that far. That Tara pushed the discipline idea, but he made the final call. That sentence mattered. Because blame shifting and accountability are not the same thing. At least in writing, he admitted the decision was his. But admission after evidence feels very different than accountability before exposure. Tara actually contacted me too. That surprised me. She said I was destroying Noah's relationship with his father over one mistake. One mistake. That phrase again. As if leaving a 7-year-old alone beside interstate traffic was equivalent to forgetting lunch money. I didn't respond. Some conversations don't clarify anything. They only reveal how differently two people define harm. If this story is hitting you emotionally, comment where you're watching from right now. And don't forget to subscribe. I'm reading every single comment. 3 days later, Noah brought home a drawing from school. Crayons, stick figures, a police car, a vending machine, a little orange circle on one wrist. I asked about it. He said, "That was the safe place." Safe place. That phrase nearly broke me. Because for him, safety became a vending machine beside strangers instead of family inside a car. A week later, Trooper Reeves called to check in. Not procedure, just kindness. He asked how Noah was doing, then said something I'll always remember. A lot of kids panic in situations like that. Your son remembered exactly what he was taught. I thanked him. Then sat in silence after the call. Because validation helps. But it doesn't erase what made the validation necessary. That night, while I tucked Noah into bed, he asked the question I'd been dreading. If Dad loves me, why did he leave? There is no clean answer to that for a 7-year-old, no sentence that protects innocence completely. So I told him the truth he could carry. Adults can make deeply bad choices. That was never your fault. He accepted that faster than I did. A few nights later, I offered to take the orange wristband off. Noah shook his head. He wanted to keep wearing it. That hit harder than expected, because objects absorb meaning after trauma. To me, it was an emergency tool. To him, it became proof he knew how to survive something frightening. I let him keep it on. I taught my son what to do if strangers ever left him behind. Stay visible. Stay put. Show the wristband. Ask a safe adult. He followed every rule exactly. What I never imagined was needing those lessons because of family. Months later, the legal situation changed. The custody structure changed. Trust changed. But one sentence still lives with me. The first thing my son asked when I reached him, "Did I do it right?" And the truth is, I wish with everything in me that he'd never needed to. I taught my son how to survive being left by strangers. I never imagined the people driving away would be family.